Hi, I'm Mahendra Hote and welcome back to this series on the tutorials of version 1 in my YouTube channel Agile Enthusiast. In the first tutorial we saw about project creation, menu bar, configurations and the grid view. The second tutorial was all about strategic themes, portfolio items, WSJF and things like that. The third was dedicated to budgeting. Fourth was all about creating a product backlog group, product backlog items and linking them to the portfolio items. This is tutorial 5, which is all about planning. Now that we have some product backlog items in place, which we created in tutorial number 4, I will show how to do the PI planning, program increment planning, by creating child projects under the parent. I will even talk about creating a separate schedule for each of the teams. I will talk about sprint scheduling and creating the tasks under the stories. We will see the configuration that can be done to the level of tracking for the story and defects. I will even show how to create the tests for the stories and defects. We will end this session by showing how to create the dependency between work items and even generate a report on the dependencies. So let's get started. In the safe construct, this is the Scaled Agile Framework website, www.scaledagileframework.com. In the safe construct, we have a release train. Which is nothing but agile release train is a team of teams. At a program level, we'll have multiple program increments. The program increment objective, the PI objective, is met by multiple teams working on the same iteration schedule. We will replicate the same in version 1. Here the assumption is the audience of this team understands what scaled agile framework is and what is program increment and what is the synchronization and the cadence of these various teams. If you don't completely get it, I will have a tutorial on scaled agile framework. Please visit that. It will give you a complete idea of what is scaled agile framework all about. Well, coming back. We will have a parent version 1 project at the release train level. Then create one child version 1 project per team at the PI level. For this demo purpose, we will have two teams, the names being lions and tigers. Click on add child planning level. Let me zoom. Here, at the system level, add child planning level. To create my project at essential shape, this is the project that I'm creating. I'll be creating my project at essential shape. The resultant screen will show as it has been created already. Please note that I'm using a screenshot after creating the tree structure rather than starting from a blank slate. Now click on child. Let me zoom again. Click on child. Click on the child planning level. and add program level ART. Choose the level as release train and the resultant screen will look like this. Release train is at the program level. If you remember the safe screenshot that I showed at the starting of this tutorial, a release train is always at the program level. Now, under the program level ART, under the program level ART, you click on Add Child Planning Level and create PI1. This is nothing but program increment number 1 and give it as a level of program increment. Under PI1, again click Add Child Planning Level. That add 2 children as Project Team Lions and Project Team Tigers. These are for my 2 teams which will be part of the Agile release train. The thought process that I have is the portfolio item 1 will be handled by Lions and portfolio item 2 will be handled by Tigers. That is how the segregation of work I have planned for this demo. Lions and Tigers will take part in delivering the program increment 1. That's how I have planned. I have even created project team Cheetah and Panthers as well. I have created Cheetah and Panther as well. But they will not be part of the program increment. They will be standalone Scrum teams. I have planned this way so that I can show how to use version 1 both as a part of the safe essential construct as well as a standalone Scrum team. Additionally, note that I have created and used separate sprint schedules for each of the teams. I have created separate sprint schedules for each of the teams. There's a schedule for Lions, Tigers, Cheetah and Panthers. In a program increment, we would want both the teams, that is the Lions and Tigers, to work on the same cadence. That is, the sprints for both the teams should start on the same date and end on the same date. So we need to have separate schedule created for each of the teams. Let us see how to create the sprint schedule in the next slide. Creation of a sprint schedule is a planning activity. Under the planning level, there is something known as a sprint schedule. I have explained how do we get to this particular menu item by clicking on the star and things like that. That is what I explained in tutorial number 1. Click on sprint schedule. Under planning levels, click on sprint schedule, which will give a pop-up. Give the title as schedule for tigers. Give the title as schedule for tigers. And the length as 14 days. Click save. Similarly, create one for lions as schedule for lions, schedule for cheetahs and panthers respectively. This is how the portfolio tree will look. What I have done is I have created 2 portfolio items, 1 and 2. Portfolio item 1, portfolio item 2. Item 1 is with lions and item 2 is with tigers. As you can see, item 1 is with lions and item 2 is with tigers. And I have created stories and spikes under the portfolio items. I am not showing the steps how to create the backlog items as I have already shown that in tutorial number 4. Now let us plan the sprints for Team Lions and Tigers. As per the scaled agile framework, each program increment will be 5 sprints. Sprint 1 to sprint 4, and the fifth one will be known as a IP sprint. That is what we will create now. Change the planning level to Tigers. Remember that we have to always choose the right planning level. Change the planning level to Tigers and use the schedule for Tigers and click apply. Click apply. For Lions team, choose the Lions schedule and click apply. This is where the schedules that we created plays a role. Only if you have individual schedules created as part of the planning as described earlier, you will be able to create the sprints which are in sync in terms of dates for two different teams. Otherwise, you will not be able to do this. So, just to repeat, if we need both the teams to start on the same start date and end date, you would require two separate schedules created as shown earlier. Under the team, click on sprint scheduling and click add sprint and add the 5 sprints as shown from 1 to 4 and an IP sprint. I have already added sprints S1, S2, S3, S4 for Lions, and I've got an IP sprint for Lions. Here in this screenshot, I've already added 5 sprints. However, I'll show you how to add a sprint. So, click on add sprint. Once you click on add sprint, you will see a pop-up where you will need to give the sprint name, the begin date, end date, and click save and new if you need to add more sprints, or just save if that is the only sprint that you want to add. Well, this is how it will look once the sprints are created. You have all the sprints lined up over here for Team Lions sprint 1 to sprint 4, and the fifth one being the IP sprint. Now let us create the sprint backlogs for the teams. Click on the portfolio tree with the planning level as PI1. Keep the planning level as PI1 and click on the portfolio tree. Here you can move the stories to the backlog of the respective teams. Choose the respective planning level for each of the stories. In this example, I am choosing product team Tigers for user story 6. This is user story 6 and I am choosing project team Tigers. I have already moved the stories of Lions to the project team Lions. As you can see, this is the project team Lions and these are all the stories under the portfolio item 1 which have moved under project team Lions. This is how the backlog for Lions will look like as I have moved all the stories under Lions. Please note the planning level should be project team Lions as shown by this arrow mark. This is the product backlog for Lions. As you can see, nothing is moved to any of the sprints yet. That is why it says backlog is none. Backlog for none. See how the portfolio tree looks for Tigers. Though user story 5 and 6 is part of Tigers, only one story is part of Tiger Sprint 1. Rest of the two are in the backlog for Tigers. This is what we can see when we click team and the planning level as project team Tigers. Choose the planning level as project team Tigers and click on team. Now we observe the title. It says backlog for team Tigers S1P1. Here also it shows that there's one story that the team has planned, which is for 8 story points. It is the size of user story 17. Now user story 17 is part of sprint 1 for Tigers. Now let us see the product backlog for the other teams. Click on the product backlog and see the list of product backlog items. In this screenshot, observe the planning level. It is at the entire project level. It is at the entire project level. Let me zoom a bit. It is at my project at Essential Safe. I have a production defect as well, which the Lions will handle in sprint 1 of PI1. Here is a production defect. Here is a production defect, and I have planned it for Lions sprint 1. Since the planning level is at the project level, I do have some stories and spikes for Panthers and Cheetahs as well. Panthers and Cheetahs. I do have some stories for Panthers and Cheetahs who are not part of the program increment. They are teams which are independently running but not part of any PI. As of now, the sprint is just created. It is not yet active. This is something that important that we should understand. The sprints are just created. It is not yet activated. When a sprint is first created, it is automatically set to the closed for future status and no work can be logged against it. I repeat, when the sprint is first created, it is automatically set to the closed or future status. It is either in the closed status or in the future status, and no work can be logged against it. When the sprint starts, it must be activated so team members can see their scheduled work in their My Work page and begin tracking effort. At the end of the sprint, when all work is completed, the sprint can be then closed. We will activate the sprint later when we are ready for sprint execution. Additionally, the delete option is enabled only if there are no items in the sprint. The delete option is available here since there are no items in this particular sprint. These are some functionalities which is good to know. You can drag and drop an work item from the backlog to the particular sprint. For this demo, in sprint 1 for Lions, I will have user story 1, 3 and defect 1. In sprint 1 for Lions, I will have user story 1, 3 and defect number 1. The screenshot shows me dragging user story 3. If you can see this icon, let me zoom a bit. What I've basically done is I've clicked this and I've dragged it from here to here. That is why you see this icon and I've taken a screenshot at that particular point of time. I'm dragging and dropping user story 3 from my backlog into sprint 1 for Lions. You can even do the bulk movement by clicking the items you want to move, and you can even do the bulk movement by clicking the check boxes, and here there's a button known as move to sprint. Let me zoom again. You can click the check boxes and there's a move to sprint. By pulling the drop down at move to sprint, it gives you a pop. Choose the relevant sprint name from the drop down and click move. Clicking on sprint 2 shows that the sprint backlog is empty. I've clicked on sprint 2. It shows that the backlog for sprint 2 is empty. Simultaneously, the product backlog for the team is also shown here below. This is the product backlog of Lions, and since I've chosen sprint 2 over here, it is showing me the sprint backlog of sprint 2 for Lions, which is practically empty. Selecting this section on the left frame shows the sprint backlog for Lions sprint 1. Observe all the information that is available here. Let me zoom. This is the backlog for Team Lions of sprint 1. This shows that the sprint is planned for 13 story points. You can see that the stories have been tasked out and the story 1 needs 27 hours of work. Story 2 needs 15 hours of work, and Defect 1 needs around 6 hours of work to be delivered. From a planning point of view, for sprint 1 for Lions, we are ready to start the sprint. For Tiger sprint 1, the user story 17 does not have any estimates. Now this is a sprint backlog for Tiger sprint 1. I've chosen Tiger sprint 1 and this is the sprint backlog for Tiger sprint 1. As you can see, user story 7 has not been tasked out. This means that the story has not been tasked out yet. We don't have any task, the technical task to achieve this story. We have not yet created it. That's what it means. Pull the drop down arrow and click add task. You can add a task by pulling this drop down and clicking add task. You will have this pop-up. Give the title. Here in this case I have given some development work. Choose the owner of this particular task. Give the estimate in hours and click save or save and new if you need to add another task. Likewise, I have created code review and testing tasks as well. The user story 17's task looks something like this in the detail view, which is totaling up to 24 hours of work. After I do all the tasking for user story 17, these are the technical tasks that I have, some development, code review, testing, and it is totaling to around 24 hours of work. You can see the details in the detail planning section as shown. Note that the planning level is at project team Tigers, and the sprint in the drop down is Team Tigers S1P1. Click on this plus symbol. Let me zoom. Click on this plus symbol to expand and see the tasks, the technical tasks that are under user story 17. In fact, you can add task in this view as well. This is how it looks for Team Lions on changing the planning level and sprint 1 for Lions. I've chosen the planning level as project Team Lions and I've chosen the sprint as Team Lions sprint 1. See the details that is available here as well. Sprint 1 of Lions have committed for 13 story points. So they are committed for 13 story points and the estimate is 42 hours. The technical tasks that need to be accomplished to get the story to done state is 42 hours, while the to do is 40.5 hours. Let me do the tasking for the defect as well. As you can see, the detailed estimate and the to do is blank. The detailed estimate and the to do is blank for this defect. Pull the arrow down as shown here. Click Add Task. The moment you pull the arrow, you have this pop-up. You click Add Task. As you can see, this is the level that I've chosen, and here I've clicked on Edit, the arrow mark alongside the Edit, and I'm clicking Add Task. Give the details of the development work that needs to be done to fix this defect. Some development work, owner, type is code. But as you can see, the detailed estimate hours and the to-do hours of this field are not editable. Surprising. The detailed estimate hours and to-do hours is not editable. Why? Let me answer that. The reason is under the configuration as shown. Let me zoom again. Here you can configure how you want the tracking to be done for the backlog items and the defects. For the backlog item, it was at track at task or test level only. For the backlog, it is track. The tracking level needs to be changed for the defect as well. Currently, it is configured at track at defect level only. Change it to track at task and test level only and click Save. Now you can see that these fields are editable. Enter the hours and click Save. Under detailed planning, we can add the test cases to a story as well. Under team, under detailed planning, we can add the test cases. For this particular story, when you click the arrow mark here, you get this pop-up which says Add Test. Clicking on Add Test, you have this pop-up. Give the title of the test, give some description, and what is the type of test it is. Is it a performance, usability, or a functional? The type of test. Additionally, scrolling down, you can give the details of the setup, inputs, steps, expected results as well. Let me zoom. Setup, input, steps, expected results as well. This is how the planning board will look after the test cases are added. For this user story, I have two test cases, test 1 and test 2 for this user story 1. Now let's see how to handle dependencies. The dependencies can be at the work item level or at the portfolio level. We will see both. First, we'll see at the work item level. There are multiple ways to create the dependency. I'm showing one of them. In this view, mousing over the user story, you will get a pop-up tooltip. Click as shown to edit the story. The moment you mouse over this particular story, you get this pop-up tooltip. Now you click on this user story. You have the details of this user story popping up. Scrolling down of this popped up page, this is where you can add dependencies. You can have an upstream or a downstream dependency for this story. Meaning to say, if this story depends on some other story to be completed first, then we need to create an upstream dependency. In that particular story, it will automatically appear as a downstream for the story. This will be very useful if there are story dependencies between teams. In this example, let us create an upstream dependency with the story of Team Tigers. Let me create an upstream dependency with the story of Tigers. Click on Assign. On clicking Assign, you will get this pop-up. Here you can search using the search feature as shown. Choose Project Team Tigers. Choose Project Team Tigers. You are presented with only the work items of Project Team Tigers. I am clicking on Add to add the dependency on user story 5. Now if you mouse over and see the details of user story 5, the upstream dependencies are there. Click on user story 5 as shown. It shows that it has a downstream dependency on user story 1 of Lions. It has a downstream dependency of Project Team Lions. In the report section, you can even generate a dependency report. Click on Backlog Dependency List. Let me zoom a bit. Open Backlog Dependency List. I'll be talking about reports in a bit more detail in the subsequent tutorial, but as of now, let's see this particular report, dependency list. You can choose the appropriate filters and click Go. Let me zoom. Dependency direction, and you can choose the all appropriate filters and click Go. Well, this brings us to the end of tutorial number 5. This was very a long one since this was all about planning. Thanks for joining. Meet you in tutorial number 6.